Hey, good morning, everybody. Here we are, another wonderful blessing that God's given us this morning to get our day kicked off right with another dose of God's Word. We can look out in the news today, look out in the world and all that's going on over in Israel and Hamas and all those horrible things that's going on. And oftentimes when such things happen, people say, well, look, Bible prophecy is being played out within our eye, but right before our eye. The book of Revelation is coming to pass, and all these types of things. And all of that is under the presumption that God still has something special for the children, the fleshly children of Israel. Now, there's several things, and we just do not have time to talk about them this morning. But one thing that we need to consider is that when Israel went off into captivity, many of their records were lost. You go back and you read the books of Ezra and Nehemiah, many of the records were lost that people were even Jews to begin with, and priests and so on and so forth. And so we have to take those things into consideration. If these people that's now fleshly Israel, even if they are 100% Israel as was required, blood-wise, was in the Bible. More times than not, and I think it would be safe to say that it's going to be a mixed race, so to speak. But with that being said, the Bible tells us something about, Jesus himself tells us something about Israel or about Jerusalem and the temple and so on and so forth. And what Jesus is going to tell us here in Matthew, the 23rd chapter, the very last part of that chapter, last two verses, Jesus is essentially going to say, I don't want nothing to do with Jerusalem. Notice what he says. Matthew chapter 23 and verse 37, Jesus says, O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the one who kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to her. How often I wanted to gather your children together as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, but you were not willing. See, your house is left to you desolate. There has been one constant, there's many constants concerning God, but when it comes to his people, there has been an absolute constant with the children of Israel, the fleshly children of Israel. When they disobeyed God, they were on their own. When their arrogance and rejection of him was to the point that they were just not going to listen to him except what he said, and they were on their own. He was not going to help them. You read through the book of Judges. Not until they humbled themselves and come to themselves and started eating crow, so to speak, did he help them. Well, now we have in the New Testament that Christ has come, and for the most part, most of Israel don't want anything to do with Jesus. Yes, I know that there's Messianic Jews. Yes, I understand that. That's a whole nother conversation. Then we can get into doctrine and those types of things. But none of these things change what Jesus says. Jesus says, I want to help you, but you won't help me. But you won't let me help you. I wanted to gather you under my wings like a hen does her chicks, but you wouldn't have nothing to do with it. So since they didn't want him, what does he say? Okay, you're on your own. Your house is left to you desolate. That means you're not going to have God's help. And so all this stuff that we see that's happening over in the Middle East, in Israel and Hamas, and all these things that's going on we see in the news. You know, people think that, and been taught for generations now, that Israel we have to stand with Israel. Just think about this. Did any Gentile nation ever have to stand with Israel in the Old Testament? No. Now, I'm not saying that we ought not pray for these people, the atrocities that are being played out, the children being taken and kidnapped, and just all of these horrendous things that's being taken place. Yeah, we need to pray for these people, and that this madness would end. But we also need to understand is that our praying for Israel, that's not going to change their disobedience and rejecting of the Messiah. And so when we see these things in the news and we hear all this kind of stuff, the Bible prophecy is not being played out in front of us. That's just simply sin. That's just simply sin, people rejecting God and living life on their terms. It's simply based on hatred and animosity and so on and so forth. It's not Bible prophecy. And so we need to understand that there is nothing that God has got to do with Jerusalem anymore. How do we know that? Jesus just said it. You didn't want me? You don't want my help? You're on your own. You're on your own. Not until people, whether it claim to be an Israelite or a Gentile, well, whoever it is, not until an individual humbles themselves to obedience to the gospel of Jesus Christ are they going to have the care and the protection to the fullest extent that God has to offer. Just something to think about. And here's your dose of God's Word today. Jesus, what he said here in Matthew 23, it doesn't change. It still says, your house is left unto you desolate because you don't want me. And much of what we have going on in the Middle East can all get traced back to that. Israel has not obeyed God as they should. There's your dose of God's Word. I hope we'll get you thinking. I hope we'll get your wheels turning. But nonetheless, Lord willing, tomorrow we'll get back and we'll get us another dose of God's Word to get our day kicked off right. Until then, I hope you have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.